Welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast presented by Bee Culture. Beekeeping Today podcast is your source for beekeeping news, information, and entertainment. I'm Jeff Ott.
And I'm Kim Flatham.
Hey, Jeff and Kim. Today's sponsor is Global Patties. They're a family-operated business that manufactures protein supplement patties for honeybees. It's a good time to think about honeybee nutrition. Feeding your hives protein supplement patties will ensure that they produce strong and healthy colonies by increasing brood production and overall honey flow. Now is a great time to consider what type of patty is right for your area and your honeybees. Global offers a variety of standard patties as well as custom patties to meet your needs. No matter where you are, Global is ready to serve you out of their manufacturing plants in Airdrie, Alberta, and in Butte, Montana, or from distribution depots across the continent. Visit them today at www.globalpatties.com.
Thanks, Sherry, and thank you, Global Patties. You know, each week we get to talk about how much we appreciate our sponsor support, and we know you'd rather we get right to talking about beekeeping. However, our great sponsors are critical to help making all of this happen. From the transcripts, the hosting fees, the software, the hardware, the microphones, the subscriptions, the recorders, they enable each episode. So with that, thanks to Bee Culture Magazine for continuing their presenting sponsorship of this podcast. Bee Culture has been the magazine for American beekeeping since 1873. Subscribe to Bee Culture today. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We're really happy you're here. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe or follow Beekeeping Today podcast and give us a 5-star rating. It really does help. Also, we are now adding complete transcripts of each episode on the website after the show notes. Check them out. You can also leave questions and comments online under each show. You can leave a comment, ask a question, reply to a question, ours or listeners. Click on Leave a Comment at the top of the episode's show notes to join the discussion. Have you listened to an episode and thought, that person sounds really interesting, and I'd like to know more about them? Well, now you can. Each episode links to a guest profile. Each profile has a guest photo, bio, contact information, including Instagram and Twitter details if they have them. Check it out. And finally, share the podcast with your beekeeping friends, email them links, or mention it at your next beekeeper meeting. Hey, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Kim will be joining us in just a few minutes. It is springtime just about everywhere, and many of us are receiving new packages of bees, hiving nukes, making splits, and I hear some of you are even chasing swarms already. Spring always seems to take forever to arrive, and when it does, the bee world lights up quickly. I hope your spring in the bee yard is going well. On today's show, we welcome back Dr. Jerry Bromenshenk. He was last on the podcast 3 years ago in May of 2019 when he first introduced us to the work he was doing on acoustic-based AI app, Bee Health Guru. Now, that's a mouthful. Using this app on a mobile device such as an iPhone or an Android-based phone, a beekeeper records the sounds of the colony by sliding the microphone of the phone into the entrance of the hive. After about 60 seconds or so of listening and recording the sounds, the app measures key aspects of the colony's health and provides a beekeeper with an analysis of its findings. It's all based on AI technology that Dr. Bromenshenk and his team are working on. It lets you know, is it queenless? Does it have a varroa? Did it have American foul brood? Pretty cool stuff. There's a couple other things it also checks out. Today, Jerry's providing an update and also telling us a couple other projects he's got going, and he's always doing something with bees. The guy is one of the busiest retired people I know. Before we get to all of that, Kim has been doing a lot of reading over the past month or so and sent in this review of Swarm Control by Richard Ball, a book published by Northern Bee Books. Let's listen to that now.
Welcome to another chapter of Bee Books Old and New. My schedule got rearranged this spring, and I am woefully behind. So today I'm going to do a new book, and next week we'll talk about one of Northern Bee Books' old books for you to enjoy. And then maybe I can get caught up. Maybe. Well, so it's Earth Day, 2022 today, as I'm recording this. It's late Friday afternoon, cloudy and a bit cool, but not cold, and it isn't raining for a change. But they say that by next weekend it will reach the upper 70s and maybe even 80. This is going to be perfect swarm time. The time of year is right, Early spring trees are just starting to bloom. I saw my first dandelions this week. The temperatures will be good in a week or so, and my colonies have laying queens, quite a bit of brood, and lots of food. The downside is that's what they were a couple of weeks ago when I last checked them. I haven't had an opportunity for an in-depth internal check for that long due to poor weather and time constraints here at home. So I'm not just sure what's going on inside, but I can guess. Fortunately for those of us who are more often a day late and a dollar short, Northern Bee Books just released their latest book on swarm control by Richard Ball, an experienced UK beekeeper. Since 1996, he has been a county, then regional, and finally he rose to run the entire bee inspection service for England and Wales, retiring from that position finally in 2011. He's looked at a lot of hives during that time of year, and he's also studied the techniques beekeepers use to both stop colonies from even thinking of swarming, to using some major techniques. Maybe major isn't the right word here, more like draconian techniques beekeepers have invented to stop swarms from happening once the urge sets in. If you've been keeping bees for a decade or more, you have run across all of the techniques he discusses and tried at least some of them. There's not a lot new here, but the biology of why they work is logically explained, the diagrams are well done and easy to follow, and the predictability of the techniques is explained. I don't have the space here to explain the how-to of all of these, so I strongly suggest you take a look at this new book. He starts with simple skills, finding and marking the queen, and then the why do bees swarm anyway. Then he looks at practical ways to stop a colony that has started this process, how to recognize this, and how to stop it using either the Demery method or a simple modification of that method. Finding queen cells is a skill that you'll need here. But then he moves to managing a colony so that the swarm impulse doesn't rise in the first place, or better, ways to make a colony think it has already swarmed and life should go on. These involve the Pageant and Hedden and Snellgrove methods and modifications of these to accommodate different hive styles and different beekeeper skill levels. That in itself makes this book worthy looking at because he looks at all the different kinds of hives that are out there, and he considers people who are just starting and people who've been doing this for a lifetime. These all do what he says they will do. Well, almost all of the time. Bees will be bees sometimes. But then he takes on a new challenge, using an artificial swarm resulting in a period of time where a queen isn't laying eggs in a colony and producing brood that varroa mites can feed on, thus ridding a colony of most of that pest, but keeping it under the beekeeper's control. 2 birds, 1 artificial swarm, and maybe 2 colonies, or back to 1. You get to decide. And if you decide to make 2 colonies into 1 colony, he describes the very simple and very successful technique of using a simple sheet of newspaper to make 1 from 2. If swarms are in your future, today, next week, or next season, take a look at this new book. 1 saved swarm will pay for the book and lots of honey left over. It's available on Amazon or from Northern Bee Books. Check it out. I guarantee both you and your bees will be better off because of this book.
Thanks, Kim. That's a timely review. Hey, everybody, this is definitely the right book for this time of year. Add it to your library soon. Okay, let's get right into our discussion with Dr. Jerry Bromenshenk. But first, a quick word from our friends at Strong Microbials.
Hello, beekeepers. Your honeybees face a lot of challenges out there. Unbalanced food sources from monoculture crops, holding yards, drought, food shortages, antibiotics, pesticides, and pathogens like chalk brood. To overcome these challenges, your bees need the multiple bacteria that are in all nectars, pollens, and the environment. These bacteria aid honeybees' digestion and improve your honeybees' response and resilience to pesticides. Now you can help improve your honey colony health with a quick, easy, and safe-to-use product. Strong Microbials Super DFM Honeybee uses naturally occurring bacteria to restore the healthy gut biome of your honeybees. Check them out today at www.strongmicrobials.com.
Hey, everybody, welcome back, and thanks, Strong Microbials. We appreciate your support. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Beekeeping Today podcast. Sitting across our Beekeeping Today podcast virtual Zoom table is no other than Dr. Jerry Bromenshenk and Rob Seccomb, both from University of Montana. Is that correct? I know, Jerry, you're retired from University of Montana. Rob, I'm not sure where you're from.
Well, once upon a time was the University of Montana. Now it's our own company, so we're independent of them.
Very good. Welcome to the show.
It's nice to see you again, Jerry. It's been too long. How is Montana treating you?
Well, Montana's treating us pretty well at the moment. We haven't quite got out of winter. We had snow last week. We had a little bit. Robert over in Butte had quite a bit more. And if you could go farther east, they had 20, 30 inches. So we're not quite done with winter yet.
Yeah, we got the same here. I've had inches of snow in the last couple of weeks in Northeast Ohio. Jerry, you've got two things going on that we want to talk to you about today. One of them back in 2019, I think it was, Jeff.
Yep.
That we had Jerry on, and we were talking about this app that he was developing. Isn't that correct? And then you've got another project now that you're just starting up, and we want to just kind of bring people up to speed on what your app is doing and where you want it to go, and then have you give a quick overview of the project you're just beginning. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
All right. Well, when we talked to you before, your app was still looking brand new. So what have you done to it since, and where's it going?
Well, we put out our app with the idea that we know from our prior work, almost a decade of research, that if we use high-end microphones and good digital recorders and powerful computers, we had very high accuracy of 86 to 98% or more for 8 major health, pest, and disease problems that bees are exposed to. Basically, we insert a microphone. It could be the microphone on your phone, or it could be an external microphone into a colony. We take a 30-second or a 60-second recording of the sound the colony makes. And it then basically tells us whether it's got a queen or doesn't have a queen. Does it have mites? And if it has mites, at what level? Does it have foul brood? And if so, at what level? Does it have nosema? Is that colony more or less thriving, or is that colony failing? Does that colony have a couple of other factors that, depending on the region you're in, you may or may not see in your own bees, like Africanized bees. And something like Africanized bees, it's pretty good. I mean, but my own ear can hear the difference on an Africanized colony. They're very loud as you come up to it. The thing that surprised us is that we could discriminate things like mites, and even more surprisingly, American foul brood. The problem we have when we put it on our smartphones and tablets, and we did that because that was much more economical than building a special tricorder for bees. So, beekeepers around the world, even in third world countries, they have cell phones. So almost virtually every beekeeper anywhere, if they can afford bees, can afford a cell phone. And with a cell phone, you've got a tool that we hope you can use to help as a management tool for beekeeping. So the problem we faced in 2019 is, one, we had to get it into a format that we didn't have to build and the customer didn't have to buy. So that's why we went with the smartphone. We got extra value out of the phones. We did not know with all these phones from all different brands, from high-end Samsung and for example, phones like the current, I just bought a Samsung Galaxy 21 Ultra, very spendy phone, but it got great cameras and a good audio system in it, versus something like a cheap Chinese knockoff. We're still working through those to see what kind of phone we need to get the accuracy of the recording, a good, clean recording that we can use to reliably diagnose the various problems that we're looking for. So the idea is we listen to the bees using the microphones, we get a recording, and then to calibrate that system, we ask the beekeepers to open their hives and inspect them, and a little drop-down menu allows them to say, yes, it's got a queen, or no, it doesn't have a queen. Yes, it's got foul brood, no, it doesn't. Is that a high level or low level? And we don't expect it to be accurate right off the bat, because these are unknown hardware and unknown software with all these different companies. So what we really need a lot of people testing for us so that we can dial that in. And that was what we were really focusing on. We were really happy in 2019. We finally got the thing on a smartphone. The phones and tablets finally got fast enough that it didn't take 20 minutes to do an analysis. It was down to 10 to 15 seconds on a top-end phone. And we sent it out to the users. And year one was we learned everything we shouldn't have done. And everything that we thought they wanted and everything they actually wanted. They weren't necessarily the same. So Robert and I had an eye-opener for that. Number one, the beekeepers really liked the fact that we had a little inspection chart for things like foul brood, nosema, queenless, queen right type of thing, the basics that are really major issues for pests and diseases. And they liked that so much because it was real simple to use and had quick little drop downs that they wanted to use the app more than anything for their own beekeeping management. So I guess that's a credit to Jeff Pepples, our app designer, because he's not a scientist. He's an artist. He's a musician. He's a computer guy that works with virtual reality and all kinds of things. And his comment was, you got to make this thing really simple and easy and fast to use. And that's what the management part of it turned out to be. Much more than a lot of the ones that go into great detail, but don't get used because it just takes too long.
Yeah.
So number one, they really wanted to have their records available to them for their own management. Well, that takes more than work than you might expect, working the database around so we could turn it around, but we got that done. So over the last 2 years, as our users told us what they liked and didn't like, we've changed it. So we had several mods that have come up. So now you can use it for a data management system and all of your records stay on your phone and you can access them at any time. So now you got a management tool. The second thing was that we found out that a lot of people were a little bit reticent or uncertain about doing the visual inspections. They weren't sure they knew what, say, a queenless colony looked like, especially if they were just new to the thing. And so it became a learning tool, but that worked against us because they would send us recordings but no inspections. Well, it's kind of like taking a test. You never grade them. You don't know what you've got. And so Robert had thousands of recordings submitted to him, but only a small percentage of those actually went the extra step to inspect. So that's one of the things we learned. We really had to tell them that I'm glad you're using it, but we aren't going to be able to calibrate it unless you actually do the inspection. But we also learned that we've got a little cheat sheet that you can hit a question mark and you can find out what the pests and diseases look like, how you should score them, and so on. So it's right there on the phone. And as such, it becomes a self-instruction. So what we realize is that the visual inspection, if they follow the little crib sheet, really were apparently pretty accurate. So if we can get them to do the inspection, even though they're a little nervous about doing them and so on, that's pretty good data. So combine that with the data management, and we decided that what we really needed to do was auto map everything that they input based on the visual inspections, because at the moment, visual inspection is still more accurate than the acoustic. The long-term goal is to get the acoustic to replace it. So now you can use it as a data management system. But if you visually inspect your colony, if you do things like alcohol washers for mites and so on, if you do the inspection properly, when you upload the thing, the moment you upload your inspection report and your recordings, our database system immediately throws it into the cloud, processes it, and puts a pin in a map and shows down to, say, a county level or something like that. We don't show the backyards, because we don't want your neighbor to know what you got. Oh, you got foul brood or something like that. But we put it in a county level or something. And we can do the kind of mapping that the CDC does for COVID, only we're doing it for the 8 variables that the app picks out on a global scale. And the moment they push the button, the pin goes into the map. And then the user on their phone can actually look up and see, are there others in the general area? Again, we purposely keep that a bit vague, so, to protect confidentiality. So we're in a position now that, unlike surveys and inspections and go to labs and so on, to take weeks to months to turn the data around, and then you may still have to have somebody do the stats and then tell you where it's at. We have real-time monitoring in a sense. The beekeeper uses the thing, pushes the button, it goes up to the thing, bing, there's a pin on the map. We hope that gives us a better sense of where the real problems are at. And I guess that's our big thing now. We realize we've got a tool that essentially is not reactive. That is, after the fact, you say you got a problem, but actually proactive in that we can pick it up as it's occurring.
This is the same app as you were working before, but these are the improvements. What's the name of the app again, and where is it available?
It's called Bee Health Guru. Guru being that the bees themselves are the guru. They tell us what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's available on a bulletin board site at www.beehealth.guru. And it's very important that you put the www in. Otherwise, it goes to GoDaddy, and GoDaddy tries to sell you another domain. So, and there is a bulletin board discussion site where we post updates. We can discuss things. We really encourage. We need to get our testers more engaged with us on that site. And so the plan in the next month here or so before summer sets in is that we're going to start putting training videos up on that site. And we'll also start putting out notices of Zoom presentations, or where maybe on a Thursday night we can say, we'll be there. If you got questions, join us here and we'll talk about the app. So we're trying to get our community more engaged in talking to each other and to us.
At one time that was available for the University of Montana master students. Is that still available for them? Do they still have access through their accounts?
I'd have to check on that at the moment. What we're doing on you can't go directly to the app stores, either the Apple one or the Android one, and pull this down, because we're trying to run this through a way that we know who the users are, mm-hmm. and where they're at, and so on. We manually set those up because we have a problem with hackers that really want to get in and mess with it. So what happens if you go to our www.beehealth.guru, we ask for a small donation, $20, $30. Somebody says, well, what do you get for 30 that you don't get for 20? Well, not anything except for the fact that it costs us money to keep these websites up, for Robert to do the retraining and so on. We're self-funding this and so on. So we think $20 or $30. And once you buy one, we'll give it, if you're part of that citizen group, we'll give you free updates on it. So okay, we think that's pretty economical. So then you go there, you make a donation. As soon as you make a donation, I ask people, please be patient, because first I have to authorize them to use that website. And I come in every morning. I try to do it every day, and manually. And if I see an alphabet soup from Russia on the return address, that's one of the ones that I'll block, because that's where all of our problems came from a few years ago, out of the East Bloc countries and Russia particularly. And then the second step is our app guy has to go in and authorize you in the proper store. So it takes a couple days to do that. But that way, we've really cut down on the hacker problem.
All right, folks, hey, let's take a quick break now to hear from our good friends at Better Bee. We'll be right back.
What makes Better Bee different as a beekeeping supplier is their focus on bringing new, innovative products to the market, such as the Colorado Bee Vac. The Colorado Bee Vac is the world's leading bee vacuum, trusted to quickly and safely capture bees during cutouts or swarms and easily transfer them to a hive. The Colorado Bee Vac was carefully crafted and tested to relocate bees while drastically minimizing any losses. Visit betterbee.com/beevac to learn more and get yours today.
Well, Jerry, how many people have you got, active people, that are using this right now?
Well, we've got about 1,000 people that have registered worldwide. Robert might have a better idea of how many are currently active, but I think recently you had about, we were talking this morning about, wasn't it, Robert, you said you had about 3,500 files that came with inspection or were reasonable, that you checked that they were hopefully helped the colonies. Those were usable files. I know that you got many more files that weren't. Maybe what Robert, you could chat a bit about is what were the common problems that made a file either very useful to you, what was the ones that were useful and what files are not useful?
Right. Start with the funny story one where people they were so happy with this app and they were sticking in their beehives and singing to their bees and singing in their kitchen and testing it out like, oh, this is great. And we get all these uploaded files of people singing in their kitchen or singing to their bees. So, and unfortunately, even the ANNs or the computers can't tell if people are singing or bees are singing. So I had to go through and listen to many, many hours of audio. And sorry, that great. I love your singing, but we can't use that.
You ought to send out a Best of the Bee Yard Hits compilation.
There you go. Well, I said at least we know our beekeepers are happy.
Yeah.
Then I suppose the next real problem was people placing the microphone in the hive. And in lots of cases, they've got a black smartphone and you turn it on, push the button, drop it on the front door of the beehive, and the first thing bees see a black thing in front of their doorway and start getting pissed off at it. So there was a bit of a learning where you have to, get the bees acclimated to your device, the microphone or whatever, before they will attack it. With the old expensive equipment we'd stick a probe microphone in and stand back for at least a minute or two so the bees will get used to it and not jump all over it. So there's a bit of a learning curve how we're going to basically adapt this whole idea to the smartphone. Other than that, the biggest problem I've had, of course, as Jerry mentioned, is not getting the inspections that I need. But still, I've got thousands and thousands of data files to work with and gigs of data. And I just finished running an ANN test here and got a 90% differentiation between groups 1 and group 2, which are Varroa and queenless. So right now, with the recording that I'm getting, I can tell queenless from Varroa infested hives, which is a start. So we've still got the rest of all the other maladies that we check for to try and work it all out.
Rob, you bring up a good question. What if you have both queenless and Varroa?
Well, the way this software is designed, it will actually hit on both. It's not like it can be one or the other. It will say a percentage of this sounds like a queenless and some percentage of this sounds like a Varroa. And you might get 2 hits on this saying, it looks like it might have both of these problems. Or you might even get the undetermined. You really can't tell, but you might want to take a look at it. And there is, of course, the normal colony, where this should sound like a normal colony. So if you get a good hit on normal, you probably are safe to go on to the next hive.
Have you got a good picture of how things spread, how things move, how things develop or don't develop?
Well, this is only since toward the end of last summer that we implemented this that we didn't have to just manually crunch it all in and so on. So then we went into winter. So we're in a prime time right now to mobilize people to do this because we can send you pictures of the maps we got around the world of these were reported during this period of time that were healthy colonies and these colonies had some type of problem. I'm glad you asked that question, Kim, because we've been trying to figure out just exactly how we get past some of this. Well, I'm not certain what I'm doing, how we get them into motivated to go out, say, on a regular basis every couple of weeks or even once a month and get recording from us and visual inspections. Because we're mapping this thing, it depends on how often the people use it and where they're at. And I'm going back to my roots on all this. We did citizen science before it was ever a term. We called it public participation, and we did pollution monitoring on landscape scales around Seattle. And that turned out to be an incredibly successful project. But the key there is there were a lot of beekeeping local associations in the Seattle-Tacoma area. And we worked with the clubs, and we would get the clubs and keep them updated. And then they would find a handful of people within each club who were really interested in working with us. And then they would work together, and the clubs on the local level more or less did the training and coordination. And so my goal since last fall is that I've been giving Zoom presentations to lots of clubs. And the message I like to tell all of your listeners is that we really think your clubs are a really good path forward. Think of it as a project for the club, something to do. They have you can help train each other. We'd like people to use an external microphone, these probe-like ones, because they get a cleaner recording, but they're a little spendy. So maybe the club could buy a couple of those, then loan them out to everybody and so on. And maybe the clubs remind them, hey, this next week we're going to go out, and all of us are going to go out and inspect our hives and report it. If we could get 2 or 3 or 4 clubs per state, for example, in the United States, doing this, say, even once a month, we would have real-time information we've never seen before, and that could build. So right now, my approach is to anybody listening, if you belong to a beekeeping club, if you're interested in this project, and if you would like, I will be more than glad to set up in some evening or weekend a Zoom meeting with your club and make a presentation of what this is all about and talk to people about how they might get engaged with this. So that's the big thing right now, is just getting the engagement and get them to carry through all the steps.
Well, there's a challenge, Jeff,
Yeah.
No doubt.
Oh, it's a challenge.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great club project, and with as many new beekeepers as come into the hobby every year, that combining the Bee Health Guru app and a mentorship program would be really beneficial for the new beekeeper.
And the app really works pretty well because it's got all the little crib sheets about how there's photos and descriptions of these major pests and diseases. It's also a learning, an educational tool in its own right. 2019, we were optimistic we were going to be talking to the bees and learning everything they're trying to tell us. Well, that's going to take a while. This doesn't happen. Human speech took a couple decades to really work out and stuff. But in the meantime, what we realized is we got a nifty little tool for managing your own bees and keeping records. We got a nice little training system. We can start mobilizing groups to make these projects and so on to tie in and coordinate the thing better. And then I'm really looking at this as a wellness program for bees. If we can do real-time monitoring of detect an outbreak when it occurs. I mean, I'm looking forward to something like, if we could get a bunch of associations all in, say, August going out, we can immediately see what the mite problem areas look like across the nation on a given week or something like that. Not get a report 6 months down the line, but right then we'd know what it looked like.
Well, if my club is interested in doing this, Jerry, I go to the webpage that you mentioned, and all the information I'm going to need to get started is there?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can leave a message, and just leave a message for me on that thing that says, I've got this and such a club, and we would like to hear from you, and I'll get back to them.
Excellent. All right. Well, if you have anything to do with your local bee club, here is an opportunity that you cannot afford to turn down, I think. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, and we'll have that website in the show notes. So make sure to check it out, and check out the app, and check out the opportunities it presents.
Well, that'd be wonderful. I mean, I'm a scientist, and I'm first in all of us, Bob, the computer person to develop the algorithm and so on, but we're really doing this because we really know it. We know it can work, and it can make a really big difference in terms of the health of our bees, because early detection and tracking of these things could be really key to solving some of the problems that we've got.
Well, Jerry, I can see how this might lend itself to be very useful in the other project you are just started, and that is in training commercial people to be, what's the word I want? Accepted, to be able to be a commercial beekeeper.
Yes.
And tell me about this program. I don't think there's ever been a commercial beekeeping beginners class.
Well, there was one, I think James too did years ago, because at least on a campus, because one of our local beekeepers out of Laurel knows James for that. But no, then decades, over the almost 50 years that I've been working with bees, I learned my beekeeping for commercial beekeepers. And Montana is a big commercial beekeeping state. We've got roughly 175,000 to 200,000 colonies of bees in this state. There are 6,000 registered bee locations down to the exact GPS location. And most of those migrate for pollination out in California. But many of the commercial beekeepers these days have a problem common to other aspects of agriculture, and that is where do you find the people that do this field work, hands-on? There's heavy lifting, long hours at times, and less than most of the agriculture industries. We haven't automated or mechanized beekeeping much. I mean, we use heavy trucks and loaders and so on, but a good and so the issue is they're so strapped for finding good help that many of them depend on workers that come in from South America and Africa. Yeah, they're going that far just to get their crews. They would really like to find people who speak English. That helps. Most of them are bilingual because they have so many, in Spanish at least, because they have so many South American members of the crew, at least the bigger operation. But they would like to find people in the United States that are interested either in working for them or maybe even at some point, I want to retire. Who's going to buy me out? Who would like to be a bee, take over? So we knew these issues have been floating around for quite a while, and it's getting more and more difficult for them to find the staffing they need. But we also have been, since 2012, through the Master Beekeeping program that we teach online, we've been very much engaged with a nonprofit in Manhattan, Kansas called Save Farms that trains soldiers for jobs in agriculture. Turns out from some Department of Commerce study, I think about 2014, that said that about 40% of the soldiers coming back from the field in Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan actually like to work outside. Decided that once they finish their service with the military, they would like agricultural jobs. So they set up a foundation to teach them agricultural jobs, typical in the Midwest. But Colonel LaGrange, who started all these, he's a retired civilian administrator from Fort Riley. He had 3 terms in Nam. The colonel basically was also very concerned about the mental health of soldiers and whether these kind of activities might be therapeutic. And his daughter is a therapist. And so they kind of did a training and counseling put together. And of all the things that these soldiers did, the one that seemed to be, they self-reported, was the helped them the most with stress issues and so on, was beekeeping. And so everything we've seen, and others have reported this, that you know about beekeeping, Kim, you and Jeff and so on. When you're out there in the beehive, you really have to focus on the bees and kind of let everything else go. And this seems to work really well. And so there's been some changes to Manhattan. There's a new nonprofit called Valor and a private honey company there now. But amongst them, and Save is still taking the lead on this, we had the infrastructure to do hands-on training there. And then the University of Montana, after, almost a decade now teaching online courses, we came in onto this thing with the idea that we could provide the online resources to support this kind of a training program. And so one of the things that the Safe Farm learned almost immediately is if you ask a commercial beekeeper what they want in a potential crew member, it's a commercial driver's license first, and certification for handling and for things like operating front end loaders and so on second, and then general knowledge of how to work around bees. That's what they're doing. And then we're building the kind of the resource for not everybody has access to or the time to go to Kansas and so on. So we're going to build, just like we did with the Master Beekeeping program, we're going to build an online presence. We learned a lot from the decade on online. So you'll see some new tricks coming in what we're doing here. But right at the moment, we got off and running in January. So we're really pretty new on this yet. Right now, though, we've got over almost 2 terabytes worth of video in the can. And what we're doing is going out to select commercial beekeeping operations. Those operations that I and my team have interacted with over the years, and we handpicked ones that we thought were really role models in terms of best practices. I mean, they did something really well. And then we'll fill in with, well, that's how they do it, but how does somebody else do it? Or maybe on a smaller scale, that might be different. But our goal between now and September is just to lay the foundation for this whole thing. In year 1, year 2, we can add to it and refine. We got 3 years on this contract. So I've stepped away from some of the other things I was doing. I was president of the Western Agricultural Society for over 2 years. And I said, guys, you're ready to, my term's up. I'm going to let you run WAS. I'm going to do this because it's something I really think is needed. And I've thought this for years and years, but I didn't have the infrastructure to put it all together. And by partnering with SAVE in Kansas, we do have that. They can do all the hands-on. We can basically give them kind of an immersion from a digital perspective. And we can also store all those documents and other type of things like forms for hiring laborers from South America. All that can go online.
Where can someone find out more about your course or keep up to date on to when it might be available for the first class?
Well, we're hoping by the fall we have it put in place enough so that we can start putting in the first class on these. SAVE is already doing some short course in commercial beekeeping just because of the demand for it, but they're going to expand what they're doing. But again, this is a brand new 3-year program. The authorization came in October, but it took until January just with COVID and so on to get everything laid in place. So this week, for the first time, our video crew sat down and said, all right, here we got, tons of video. We have to start editing this together into lesson plans and so on. So we're really at the beginning. One thing I do say, though, is that we're open to input from people about, if you're a commercial beekeeper and say, if you make a course like this, this is the one thing I'd really like you to do. That'd be great. And I don't care if they're the U.S., we go worldwide with this one the same way we do the other. If you are a beekeeper on a larger scale, professional, and you have something you've set up that you think is really state of the art, that this really is, better than average, let us know, because we don't have a lot of money for this project. We got enough to set the basics down, but if you got good video or something you can contribute to us, or things or tips that you can share, let me know. So for that, I'll probably add something to the app bulletin board for access, but for your general members, we don't have press releases yet because we're so early on this, but we're hoping to get it ready this fall. But in the meantime, I use an American Online account for general activities, so it doesn't get intertwined with all courses. And since I'm a long-term scientist that studies bees, my login is beeresearch@aol.com. And if this resonates with someone and they say, gee, I'd like to be part of that, or I've got some ideas or so on, drop me a line at beeresearch.com and I can get back to you.
Well, there are already a lot of organizations and a lot of programs out there, Jerry, I'm sure you're aware of, that are doing something similar, not as big a scale, but they're working with veterans and they're working with groups of people that want to accomplish exactly what you're going to teach them to do. So if any of our listeners are part of one of those groups or know of any of those groups, they certainly need to keep it in mind, probably get a hold of you now so that when you get up to speed to be able to work with them, you can get back to them and there'll be a place for them to go.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Kim, because there's a whole array of programs out there aimed specifically at that, but they tend to be more focused on in the local area. We'll you want to get into beekeeping, come on over, and we'll give you some pointers and we'll give you the basics, and that's great. Where this one goes is this one is going to seriously sit down to look at the plethora of jobs that are available in commercial beekeeping operations. And really what you need to know on that with, fine tuning that and very specific large scale training with this. So, but these others could certainly contribute to, merge with this thing, do some local training and so on. All that could easily be networked.
Another good aspect of this is those people that have taken that beginner's course at a local level and have found that, yes, indeed, bees are something I want to do a lot more of. How do I do that? Where do I go to find a commercial beekeeping organization that does this and but not that? And that? So you're opening a lot of doors for a lot of people. I think that's remarkable.
Yes, well, I'm continuing to fail at my retirement. Now I got to live another 3 years simply because I signed the ink on the contract. when you're pushing 80, that's becoming more nebulous. But no, and Kim, one of the things that, for example, that we did in the last couple of weeks is we went to a large-scale California queen production and package production company that also runs a large honey and pollination service. They do everything, but they're so large that they actually have their own human resources department. They've got crews with sub-managers and so on. They have for all of these employees that they try to recruit from places like in South America, there are job descriptions from, queen catcher level 1, queen catcher level 2, whatever it is, they got it with detailed list of what the skills are, what the training is, what they expect if you're going to apply for those. And we're not going to just blanket steal what they did there and repost it, but we'll take that and we can build a structure. Say, okay, well, if you're interested in the queen operation, these are the type of employees they're looking for. This is how they kind of tier them out.
At least then going in what people are going to expect and what you're going to have to prepare yourself for and what you can expect. So, again, I encourage people who might be interested in this down the road, a year or so, perhaps, to get in touch with you through your website and take the first step. You may never go any further, but if further is where you want to be, this is the place to go. So, Jerry and Rob, what have we missed in all of this?
Well, I think we've covered what we're trying to do with the app. The app started off with, can we tune this thing and so on, and it's just developed into, it's much more of a useful tool and so on than we ever imagined. So it can be used as a standalone for that. And even if you don't want to become, participate in the recordings and stuff like that, you can still use the app for your own management, your record keeping and so on. And that's perfectly fine. But if you're willing to go the next step, that's really great, and we'd like to hear from you.
So, Jerry, one last question I have for you. I know in the past years, BC, before COVID, you were attempting to get your electronic monitoring conference in Montana during the summer. And I know I've been approached whether you are going to try to do that again, maybe this year. Is there any updates on that monitoring conference?
Yeah, I can give you an update. So because of COVID, just as COVID really hit, I had 50-some speakers coming in, and they were all booking their planes, and then they all canceled in a week. And that was in 2020. And so, but we didn't really want it to go, completely off the radar screen. So in October of 2020, we hosted a week-long Zoom meeting, and we had 50 speakers from 14 countries. We kept all these talks down to 15 minutes, so that it's basically informative who's doing what where. And all of those are on the University of Montana's webpage that's tied into our Master Beekeeping program. So there's 49. I think we missed one that had some technical issues and stuff, but 49 of the 50 presentations are all available for your listeners if they want to go to and view. So that's at the University of Montana, and it's again www.umt for University of Montana.edu/BEE. And under that, you'll find the all those available on as YouTube videos. Okay. So Frank Linton and I are talking that, we had it in 2020, we skipped 2021. We're starting to get input from the group saying, when are we going to get together? WAS was supposed to meet, what was the Western Apiculture Society. Their original plan in 2020 was that WAS would meet in Missoula, as would this other group for a field demonstration. We decided in December, COVID was still so out of control. And at that time, Montana went from, in the early days and months, Montana had some of the lowest COVID rates to the highest in the nation. It just, in those rural areas, when it hit those, it went like wildfire and stuff. So we just decided we just couldn't predict 2022 even. WAS has new leadership, and they're settling into the role. We've got more new neighbors. So not this year, but in 2023, there'll be a WAS meeting somewhere. We're not sure where. And probably this year, Frank and I are starting to talk about, let's do another fall online version of that. So we're getting, the companies are becoming impatient. We want to show you what the newest thing is out there. So we will do something on that line.
Well, very good. Well, thanks for that update. Jerry, Rob, we really appreciate you being on the show this afternoon. The updates, I think what you're doing with the Saves Farms in Kansas and the Commercial Beekeeper Program, and also the Bee Guru app are really exciting, and look forward to future updates from you. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you for Jeff, for the opportunity to address your audience today. We're still pretty excited about what we're trying to do. It like all things, and we didn't expect COVID to jump in the middle of all this. It slowed us down a little bit, but maybe that wasn't so bad, because it got us to say, well, we can't do this. What should we do? Well, we really should respond to what these people are saying they want in this app. This puts us in a good position now to say, okay, we know what not to do. We know what we can do. Let's see if we can't get this thing launched.
Well, Rob, it was good meeting you, and Jerry, it was good chatting again. I look forward to getting back with you when especially your newest project is up and running, and you can fill us in on how it's going. Thanks again.
Well, I've never worried about Dr. Jerry Bromenshenk having a loss of words to say or a lack of activities. He's just always busy.
Yep, he is, and you just got to take two steps back and really admire the projects he's involved in, helping beekeepers in the beekeeping industry get better at what we're trying to do. Yeah. And I can't wait to see this commercial thing, and I'm going to sign up for the app this year.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, he'll like that. The app, I remember when I was doing the master's program at the University of Montana, was really interesting to use and to slide it in the front of the hive. Definitely can guarantee you I was not one of the people that was singing on the app. Okay. Otherwise, he would have mentioned something about the guitar.
There you go.
Yes, you'll enjoy it. It'll be fun.
Okay,
it'll be good. The only other thing I was going to mention is that I remember Jimmy Two's course at OSU in Worcester when he had it. So, yeah, it's good that Dr. Bromenshenk mentioned that Jim's course.
Yeah, small world. Jerry Hayes, who took over bee culture, took Jimmy's class. And,
that's right. Yeah.
So, fingers going out in a lot of directions. So, it's a small world we're in.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Before we go, I want to encourage our listeners to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download and stream the show. Your vote helps other beekeepers find us quicker. Even better, write a review and let other beekeepers looking for a new podcast know what you like. You can get there directly from our website by clicking on reviews along the top of any web page. As always, we thank Bee Culture, the magazine for American beekeeping, for their continued support of Beekeeping Today podcast. We want to thank our regular episode sponsor, Global Patties. Check them out at globalpatties.com. Thanks to Strong Microbials for their support of this podcast. Check out their probiotic line at strongmicrobials.com. We want to thank Better Bee for their longtime support. Check out all their great beekeeping supplies at betterbee.com. Thanks to Northern Bee Books for their support of Bee Books Old New with Kim Flodham. Check out all of their books at northernbeebooks.co.uk. And finally, and most importantly, we want to thank you, the Beekeeping Today podcast listener, for joining us on the show. Feel free to leave us comments and questions at Leave a Comment section under each episode on the website. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot, everybody.